I moved to another state, got promoted, and no one in my family even noticed. Then my cousin posted a photo of my new condo. Suddenly, Mom texted, "You could sell it to help your sister." You know that feeling? The one where you spend your whole life trying to be seen, to be acknowledged, only to realize you're nothing more than a convenient resource to the very people who should love you most? Well, that was my life until the day they showed up on my doorstep, expecting me to bail them out, and I finally understood who I really was to them. I was standing at my kitchen counter, my fingers meticulously crimping the edges of a cherry pie. It was a Saturday, one of those perfect Ohio summer days, sunlight streaming across the granite, warming my hands as I worked. From the living room, the usual weekend symphony was playing, the low rumble of a baseball game, my dad's grunts at a bad play, my mom's voice. "Careful with that vase," she'd call out, her footsteps quick on the hardwood. "Ashley, can you please watch the girls?" But Ashley wouldn't answer. No, her voice, bright and utterly professional, was already streaming from her phone, live to her online audience. "Ladies, this shawl is 100% cashmere, and we only have 5 left in inventory. VIP members, remember to comment first to reserve yours." I pressed the last crimp into the crust, slid the pie into the oven, and set the timer. The roasted chicken was resting, the salad was chilled and ready. Everything, as always, timed to perfection for our Saturday lunch. I got a promotion, I announced to the room, my voice steady, just matter of fact. "Senior Clinical Specialist." They're transferring me to the Raleigh office. The baseball game continued. Ashley's sales pitch didn't falter. Mom hurried past the kitchen doorway, chasing a giggling 4-year-old. No one looked up. Not a single word. I just stood there, completely still in the middle of the kitchen, feeling my big news evaporate into the air like steam. It shouldn't surprise me anymore, this feeling of being utterly invisible. And yet, somehow, it always does. Later, we gathered around the dining table. It's the one with that little scratch near my usual spot, a scratch I've polished countless times, never quite able to make it disappear. The food I'd spent all morning preparing sat in serving dishes, golden brown chicken, bright salad, warm rolls, and that cherry pie cooling on the counter. "This looks wonderful," Dad said, spearing a piece of chicken. To no one in particular, of course. "Mom, Lily won't eat her vegetables," Ashley complained, barely even glancing up from her phone, still typing responses to customers. "Willa, would you mind cutting her chicken into smaller pieces?" Mom didn't even wait for my answer before turning back to Ashley. "How are sales going today, honey?" I cut Lily's chicken into tiny, perfect squares, answering a question no one had asked me. The position comes with a 15% raise and a relocation bonus. I start in 3 weeks. Suddenly, Ashley's phone pinged. $2,000 in sales today already, she announced, finally looking up. Mom and Dad both turned to her, their faces lighting up with those special smiles they saved just for Ashley's accomplishments. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Mom beamed. "Smart business decision, taking your boutique online," Dad added, nodding approvingly. The warmth of the chicken seeped into my fingers, but my chest felt hollow, cold. I knew this feeling. Not quite anger, not quite sadness. It was something in between, a disappointment so familiar it no longer even surprised me. Mom turned to me, but only to say, "There's a spill on the floor by the sink. Would you mind?" I cleaned the spill. I served the pie. I washed the dishes. When Ashley's youngest dropped his fork, I was there with a new one before he could even cry. When Dad wanted more coffee, I refilled his cup without being asked. This was our rhythm, the one we'd established over years. They needed. I provided. They asked. I answered. They overlooked. I accepted. This pattern, it ran deeper than just that Saturday lunch. Last Christmas, I spent 4 days helping Ashley wrap inventory for her holiday sales while she was out at parties. 3 months ago, I used my vacation days to watch her kids so she could go to a fashion expo. 2 weeks before that, I drove Mom to 5 different stores just to find the exact shade of curtains she wanted for Ashley's living room. "Ashley has the kids," Mom had explained once, when I dared to mention the uneven distribution of family responsibilities. "She needs more help than you do." The truth hung in the air between us, unspoken but perfectly understood. Ashley had the kids, the struggling business, the constant drama that kept everyone's attention. I had nothing that made me essential, except my willingness to help. After lunch, while Ashley live-streamed her afternoon sales session and Mom took the girls shopping, I sat at the kitchen counter and composed a message to the family group chat. My fingers hovered over the screen. Then I typed, "Got my official transfer paperwork today. Moving to Raleigh, North Carolina on the 15th. Promotion to senior clinical specialist. Very excited for this opportunity." I pressed send, watching the little swoosh animation. One by one, the read receipts popped up. Mom, Dad, Ashley. No responses. I drove home to my apartment across town, the sun setting behind me. My phone pinged as I unlocked my door, and for a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. The notification showed Mom had sent a photo to the group chat. I opened it. Ashley's daughter, face smeared with cherry pie, eating leftovers. The caption read, "Someone couldn't wait for dessert." Another ping. Ashley this time, "Just hit $2,000 in sales today. New record." I set my phone on the kitchen counter, screen down. Standing alone in my silent apartment, I felt a tear track slowly down my cheek, then another. I didn't bother to wipe them away. There was no one there to notice them anyway. Moving day finally arrived. The last cardboard box slid into place in the back of the U-Haul. I shut the door with a satisfying thunk, like closing a chapter. My apartment stood empty behind me, a shell I'd never return to. The movers had already taken the furniture yesterday. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Mom's name flashed on the screen. "Come home Saturday to watch kids for your sister. Her live stream sales have a special event." I stared at the screen, tapping my fingers against the metal door of the truck. 2 weeks since lunch. 2 weeks of silence after my announcement. And now this. A command. Not a question. I typed back, "I can't. I'm going to North Carolina today." No apology. No unnecessary details. Just the bald fact. I slid my phone back into my pocket and climbed into the driver's seat. The engine rumbled to life, vibrating beneath my hands. 3 states to cross before nightfall. I tuned the radio to an oldies station, the Temptations singing about the way things used to be. Hours passed without a reply. The highways stretched before me, mile markers clicking by like memories. My 8th birthday party, Mom hustling everyone outside for cake because Ashley, 12 then, had invited friends over and needed the living room. My high school graduation, Dad leaving halfway through to pick up Ashley from a failed job interview, missing my honor society recognition. My college graduation, the family arriving late, distracted, because Ashley's then boyfriend had just broken up with her. My first promotion, the group dinner I paid for, where Mom spent the entire evening helping Ashley browse apartment listings on her phone. The pattern revealed itself, stretched across the years like the highway before me. Not isolated incidents, but a deliberate architecture. The mountains of West Virginia rose around me, then fell away as I pressed southward. My phone remained silent until I crossed the Virginia border. "What do you mean you're going to North Carolina?" Mom finally responded, 7 hours later. I didn't answer. Let her wonder, for once. The radio shifted to Billy Joel singing about moving out. I turned up the volume, one hand steady on the wheel as the landscape changed around me. By sunset, I reached Raleigh. The air felt different here, warmer, fresher somehow. I parked outside my temporary apartment complex, climbed the stairs with my overnight bag, and fell onto the bed fully clothed. For the first night in 28 years, no one knew exactly where I was. The thought felt dangerous. Exhilarating. 3 weeks later, I was settled enough to recognize my kitchen cabinets in the dark. I'd learned the fastest route to work and found a coffee shop that remembered my order. Small victories in a foreign land. My phone lit up one Sunday evening, a notification from the family group chat. "Family party this weekend. Aunt Susan turning 60, come early to set the table and help with kids. Mom again." I stared at the message, a familiar weight settling on my chest. They'd completely forgotten, or they were pretending to have forgotten. I wasn't sure which was worse. I didn't respond. Saturday came. I spent it unpacking my last boxes, arranging books alphabetically on shelves, placing framed photos of places, not people, on my walls. At 3:17 p.m., my phone exploded with notifications. "Where are you?" Mom's text shouted in all caps. "Everyone's asking about you. We saved you cherry pie. Ashley, with the least subtle bribe in history." Then, at 5:42 p.m., the incoming missile. "I never thought you'd be this selfish. After everything we've done for you. Your sister had to handle all the kids herself while I cooked. Your father had to help arrange the tables. You've let the entire family down." I waited until after dinner, seated on my new couch in my new apartment in my new city. Then I called. Not texted. This deserved a voice. Mom answered on the first ring. "Finally decided to acknowledge your responsibilities?" "Mom," I said, keeping my voice level. "I moved to North Carolina almost a month ago. I told everyone. I sent messages. I can't come set tables in Ohio anymore." "Well, you could have reminded us," she sniffed. "Your sister was very disappointed." "I'm sorry she was disappointed. How was Aunt Susan's party?" "Hectic. Without you here to help." "Your father had to." She continued, listing all the inconveniences my absence had caused. Not once did she ask about my new apartment, my new job, my new life. When she paused for breath, I tried again. "The new position is going well. I'm learning." "That's nice, dear. Listen, Ashley's thinking about expanding her online boutique and needs some startup money. Since you got that raise, we thought." "I have to go, Mom," I interrupted. "Someone's at the door." I hung up before she could respond. Sitting in the new silence of my apartment, something inside me went cold. A circuit tripped. A light extinguished. I'd spent my life reaching toward them, straining for acknowledgement, and they'd spent theirs looking through me. They didn't see me as a person, just a resource. The realization settled into my bones, not with the hot flash of anger, but the cool clarity of truth. I'd been waiting for something that didn't exist, their recognition of me as someone with needs, rather than just someone who meets theirs. I stared at my phone, expecting the guilt to come flooding in. The urge to call back, to apologize, to make things right. It didn't come. Instead, I felt lighter. Like I'd set down a heavy bag I'd been carrying so long I forgot it was there. For the first time in my life, I didn't call back. Didn't apologize. Didn't explain. The sun set outside my window, casting long shadows across my new living room. My phone buzzed twice more, then fell silent. I didn't check the messages. There was grief in this choice. Yes, the mourning of what should have been, of the family I deserved but never had. But beneath the grief ran a current of something unfamiliar. Relief. In the morning, I woke to birds singing outside my window and no new messages. My absence hadn't changed their behavior at all. They'd simply adjusted their expectations, reallocating my tasks among themselves, grumbling all the while. I made coffee in my quiet kitchen, watching the sunrise paint my walls gold. The world hadn't ended because I prioritized myself. And that, I was starting to believe, might be the most important lesson of all. The morning sunlight spilled across hardwood floors as I stepped out of the shower. It had been 2 years since I left Ohio. Since I walked away from the family that never quite saw me. 2 years of bonuses, raises, and a life built entirely on my own terms. I toweled my hair dry and caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. At 30, my face had lost the eager-to-please softness it once carried. My shoulders no longer hunched forward, ready to absorb whatever task might be thrown my way. Toby's nails clicked against the floor as he trotted to the bathroom door, his light brown curls still damp from his morning bath. He tilted his head, poodle ears perked in silent question. "Yes, Your Majesty, breakfast is next," I told him, wrapping myself in a robe. My condo in North Hills felt lived in now, not like the temporary spaces I'd inhabited back in Ohio. The second bedroom served as my home office, where certificates of achievement lined the walls, visible reminders of a career that flourishes when not overshadowed by family drama. The coffee machine hummed to life with a press of a button. While it brewed, I prepared Toby's breakfast, his tail wagging in perfect rhythm to the morning routine we'd established. There was a peacefulness to these moments, a rhythm untainted by the constant alerts of a family group chat or the sudden demands for my time. "Park after work?" I asked Toby, who responded with an enthusiastic circle dance that made me laugh. I'll take that as a yes. The park had become our evening sanctuary. It's where Toby met Benji the beagle 3 months ago, and where I met Jackson, Benji's owner. Jackson ran his fingers through dark hair streaked with early gray as he stood near the dog park fence later that day. At 33, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who builds things that matter. His rehabilitation equipment startup helped people recover from injuries, a purpose I understood intimately through my work with medical devices. There she is, he said as Toby and I approached. I was telling Benji you might stand us up for some exciting medical emergency. And miss watching these two chase squirrels? Never. I released Toby from his leash, watching him bound toward Benji in a flurry of paws and fur. Jackson leaned against the fence beside me, our shoulders not quite touching. How was the Cooper presentation? They loved the new device specifications. I smiled, still getting used to sharing professional victories with someone who actually wanted to hear them. How about the prototype testing? 3 successful. Trials today. He pointed toward a bench. Wanna sit? We settled onto the bench, a careful few inches between us that somehow felt more intimate than touching. There was none of the desperate need for closeness I used to feel with previous boyfriends, that urgent desire to secure their attention before they noticed my ordinariness. With Jackson, space felt comfortable, not threatening. The evening air carried the scent of grilling meat from a nearby restaurant. My stomach reminded me I'd skipped lunch for the Cooper presentation. Hungry? Jackson asked, noticing my expression. There's a new place that opened last week. Farm to table. Supposed to be amazing. 40 minutes later, we sat across from each other at a corner table, the restaurant's exposed brick walls and warm lighting creating a cocoon of privacy. I was midway through describing a challenging client interaction when my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a notification from the family group chat that had been silent for months. My hand froze above my water glass. The familiar tightness constricted my chest, that Pavlovian response to family contact that precedes inevitable disappointment. Jackson's eyes flicked to my phone, then back to my face, but he didn't ask. This is what I appreciated most about him. He noticed everything but didn't pry, didn't demand explanation for my reactions. I turned the phone face down without reading the message. Sorry, I said. Just old patterns trying to resurface. Jackson nodded, understanding without needing details. Old patterns have a way of doing that. Doesn't mean we have to follow them. No, I agreed, picking up my fork again. We certainly don't. The waiter brought our entrees, and the conversation shifted to Jackson's latest design challenge. By dessert, I'd forgotten about the unread message entirely. 3 days later, my cousin Ashlyn perched on my couch. Toby stretched across her lap like a furry blanket. At 22, she was the only family member who'd made any effort to stay connected since I moved. This place is gorgeous, Willa, she said, looking around my living room with genuine admiration. The warm lighting cast gentle shadows across the comfortable furniture I'd chosen piece by piece, a stark contrast to the hand-me-downs that furnished my apartment in Ohio. Thanks. It took a while to get it just right. I handed her a glass of wine, settling into the armchair opposite. How's the cross-country adventure going? Exhausting but amazing, Ashlyn scratched behind Toby's ears. I've hit 12 states so far. Raleigh was definitely worth the detour, though. It's nice seeing you, happy? She said the word like she was discovering it applied to me, and perhaps she was. The Willa she knew in Ohio rarely had cause for happiness. I am happy, I confirmed, surprised by how easily I could say it now. Work's going well. I have friends. Jackson. I trailed off, feeling my cheeks warm slightly. He seems great, from what you've told me. Ashlyn reached for her phone. Mind if I take a photo? This room is seriously magazine-worthy. Go ahead, I laughed, watching as she framed the shot, capturing the living room with its carefully arranged bookshelves and the soft glow of my favorite reading lamp. While she typed on her phone, I brought our dinner to the coffee table, pasta carbonara made from a recipe Jackson shared. Nothing like the elaborate meals I used to prepare for family gatherings that went unappreciated. Posted, Ashlyn announced, showing me the screen. The photo of my living room looked warm and inviting, but it was her caption that caught my breath. At my cousin Willa's home. She's got her own place, a wonderful boyfriend, and a life worth admiring. That's sweet of you, I said, touched by her genuine support. What neither of us anticipated was how quickly the photo spread through the extended family network. By morning, notifications flooded Ashlyn's phone, likes, comments, and messages from relatives who barely acknowledged my existence before. This is weird, Ashlyn said over breakfast, scrolling through her phone. Aunt Karen wants to know what neighborhood you live in. Uncle Rob is asking if you bought or rent. I took a sip of coffee, unsurprised. They never showed this much interest when I announced my promotion. Oh, it gets better. Ashlyn's thumb paused over the screen. Your mom commented, so lovely to see how well our Willa is doing. As if she's been involved in your life at all. The hollowness in my chest, that old familiar feeling, didn't come. Instead, I felt oddly detached, as if observing strangers discuss someone who merely shared my name. Later that afternoon, Ashlyn showed me a screenshot that made my eyebrows rise. It was a private message from Ashley to my mother. Did you see Willa's place? Looks expensive. You should ask about her financial situation. Remember how she got all those bonuses? Maybe she could help with our situation. Your sister hasn't changed, Ashlyn said, her voice tight with anger on my behalf. No, I agreed calmly. She hasn't. That evening, after dropping Ashlyn at her hostel, I told Jackson about the social media storm while we walked our dogs along a tree-lined path. Are you going to respond to any of them? He asked, voice carefully neutral. I'm not planning to reach out first, I said, after considering for a moment. But if they contact me directly, I'll need to decide how to respond. Jackson nodded, reaching for my hand. Your boundaries are valid, Willa. Stand by them. I plan to, I said, squeezing his fingers. They can only take what I choose to give now. When my phone chimed at 11:43 that night, I was already half asleep. The screen illuminated with a message from my mother. How have you been, honey? Your father and I miss you so much. Before I could process the sudden affection after 2 years of silence, another notification appeared. Ashley this time. So happy you're doing well. Your place looks amazing. My heart rate accelerated as I sat up in bed, Toby lifting his head from his cushion in concern. 2 years of silence, and now this flurry of sudden interest? The final message landed like a bomb. We already booked flights from Columbus to Raleigh. We'll arrive around noon tomorrow. The kids can't wait to see their aunt. I stared at the screen, suspended between disbelief and a ridiculous flicker of hope. Maybe they'd changed. Maybe they finally saw me. But their timing, right after seeing evidence of my success, told a different story. My phone rang, Jackson's name appearing on screen. I answered, my voice steadier than I expected. They're coming tomorrow, I said without preamble. All of them. They've already booked flights. His breath caught audibly. That's sudden. Very. What are you thinking? I considered the question, sorting through the tangle of emotions. I'm thinking they wouldn't be coming if Ashlyn hadn't posted that photo. Probably not, he agreed. There was a pause then. If you feel ready, see them. But don't let them make you feel guilty again. As I set my phone down, I realized my hands weren't shaking. The panic I would have felt 2 years ago had been replaced by something cooler, more calculated. They were coming to my territory now, into a life I'd built without them. And this time, I made the rules. I arranged the last throw pillow on my sofa, smoothing the fabric with a deliberate touch. The room was perfect, every surface gleaming, every object precisely positioned. This was my space, my home, my rules. The doorbell rang at 12:15. I counted to 10 before answering, a small act of control that steadied my racing heart. Willa. Mom surged forward, wrapping me in a hug so tight I could smell her familiar perfume, the same scent she'd worn since I was a child. Oh, sweetheart, it's been too long. 2 years and 3 months, to be exact. 2 years of birthdays, holidays, and milestones celebrated without a single call. I returned her hug with measured pressure, neither pulling away nor melting into her embrace. Dad stood awkwardly behind her, a box in his hands. Hey, kiddo. His hug was brief, one-armed, his eyes already darting past me to the television mounted on my living room wall. Games on today, Bengals playing. Ashley appeared last, her children racing past her into my condo before I could even greet them. "Your place is gorgeous," she said, air kissing my cheek. The girls are so excited to see their aunt. The girls who barely knew me because their mother never bothered to maintain our connection. "We brought cake," Mom announced, taking the box from Dad. "Chocolate, your favorite." Strawberry shortcake had been my favorite since I was 7. I wondered if she genuinely didn't remember, or if this was just another small erasure of who I actually was. "Thank you," I said, the words falling from my lips with practiced ease. "Let me put on some tea." In the kitchen, I heard the television switch on, followed by Dad's satisfied grunt as he found the game. The girls' voices rose in pitch as they raced around my living room, their sneakers thudding against my hardwood floors. From the corner of my eye, I watched one of them grab a crystal paperweight Jackson had given me for my birthday. "Amelia," I called out, my voice calm but firm. "Please put that back where you found it." Ashley laughed, high and nervous. "Oh, they're just exploring, kids, you know." "I know, and they should respect other people's things," I responded, setting the kettle on the stove. "In my home, we don't touch what doesn't belong to us." A flicker of surprise crossed her face. The girl carefully returned the paperweight, casting a wary glance in my direction before rejoining her sister. Mom wandered into the kitchen, running her finger along my granite countertop. "This must have cost a fortune," she said, disapproval lacing her words. "Your place is so extravagant." I poured hot water over tea bags, letting them steep. "I like my home." "The company must pay you very well." Ashley joined us, leaning against the doorframe. "What's the salary range for someone in your position these days?" I placed cookies on a serving plate, taking my time before answering. "Competitive. But are we talking 6 figures?" Her voice was casual, but her eyes were sharp. "Do you get bonuses?" "Stock options." "The benefits are excellent," I replied, lifting the tea tray. "Shall we sit in the living room?" Ashley's questions continued through our first cup of tea. "Does my company match 401k contributions? How much is my mortgage payment? Did I have to put 20% down?" Each query designed to assess exactly how much money I might have access to. With each non-answer, her fingers tapped faster against her cup, her smile growing tighter. "Dad," I said, during a brief lull in her financial interrogation. "How's your volunteer work with the Youth Baseball League going?" The shift worked. For 10 minutes, conversation flowed around safer topics. Dad's coaching, a cousin's new baby, Mom's garden club. I noticed how Ashley's shoulders tensed with each passing moment that didn't involve my financial situation. When her oldest daughter knocked over a vase of fresh flowers, sending water across my coffee table, I rose immediately. "Girls," I said firmly. "In this house, we sit calmly on furniture. We don't run or jump on the sofa." "Willa," Mom began, her voice carrying that familiar tone of correction. "They're just being children, I know, and children need boundaries." I handed each girl a small book from my shelf. "Here, these were my favorites when I was your age." Mom's mouth hung open, clearly unused to me setting terms in any interaction. Ashley's smile had completely vanished now, replaced by a tight line of frustration. "You've changed," Mom said finally, setting down her teacup with a small clink. "Yes," I agreed simply. The room fell silent except for the baseball game and the soft sound of pages turning as the girls, surprisingly, settled into reading. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Ashley exchanged a look with Mom, one I recognized from years of family dynamics. The signal that it was time to reveal the real purpose of this visit. Mom leaned forward, her practiced sigh filling the room. "Willa, sweetheart, Ashley's been struggling." And there it was. The boutique. Ashley jumped in, voice tight with rehearsed emotion. After 5 years in retail, I thought I was ready. I had the experience, the customer base. The story unfolded like a script they'd practiced in the car ride over. Ashley opened her own fashion boutique after years working for someone else. The initial investment came from my parents. The business failed within 8 months. The personal guarantee she signed on the commercial lease left her owing $39,000 in debt. My parents' retirement savings were already strained from helping with the startup costs. They all leaned forward now. A united front. Mom's eyes wide with concern. Dad's expression solemn. Ashley's lower lip trembling perfectly on cue. "You're doing so well," Mom said, her voice dropping to that special tone she uses when she wants something. "You could sell your condo and help your sister." Dad cleared his throat. "You have a boyfriend with money. You don't need 2 homes." They'd been here less than an hour and already knew about Jackson. Someone had done their research. "Think about the girls," Ashley added, glancing toward her children. "Help your sister, and the children will have their mother back." I'm barely sleeping with all this stress. The hollow feeling spread through my chest, a familiar sensation, but one I now recognized for what it was. Not heartbreak, but clarity. I watched them with new eyes, seeing the performance for exactly what it was. Their sudden appearance in my life after years of silence, the effusive greetings, the probing questions about my finances, all of it calculated, all of it designed for this moment. A memory surfaced, standing in my parents' kitchen announcing my promotion, the words evaporating into nothing. Another, texting about my move and receiving photos of Ashley's children eating pie in return. Years of being overlooked until I became useful again. Ashley misinterpreted my silence as hesitation. "It's not like we're asking for a handout," she said, voice rising slightly. "I'll pay you back eventually." "This is what family does," Mom added, reaching for my hand. "We help each other through hard times." Dad shifted in his seat again, eyes darting between the television and my face. "Your mother, and I won't be around forever, you know." I took a slow breath, feeling the weight of their expectations pressing against me like a physical force. But for the first time in my life, I didn't bend beneath it. Something had changed in these 2 years away, something fundamental. "I'll think about it," I said finally, my voice steady. The first cracks appeared in their united front. Ashley's cheeks flushed with defensive anger. Mom's smile faltered, and used to anything but immediate capitulation from me. Dad's attention returned fully to the game, a sure sign he sensed conflict approaching. "What's there to think about?" Ashley demanded. "We're family." "Yes," I thought as I looked at these 3 people who shared my blood, but had never truly seen me. We're family. But I'm finally beginning to understand what that word really means, and more importantly, what it doesn't. I sat perfectly still, my calm exterior a shield over the storm inside. 2 years of distance had given me perspective. But now, facing them again, I recognized the familiar weight of their expectations settling onto my shoulders. They waited for my answer with the certainty of people who had never contemplated rejection. "I've helped before," I said finally, my voice even and steady. "I've tried for years to be heard, to be loved. All I ever got in return was silence and expectation." I looked directly at my mother, then my father, finally resting my gaze on Ashley. "I'm done." Ashley's cheeks flushed pink. "But we're family. You can't just." That word family, I interrupted, the first time I could remember cutting off my sister, should mean care and respect, not debt collection. The words fell from my lips with a certainty I'd never felt before. If being family only means I keep paying for everyone's mistakes, then no, I'm not part of that version of family anymore. My father shifted uncomfortably, his mouth opening then closing, words forming and dying before they reached his lips. The silence stretched between them. My mother's eyes filled with tears, carefully measured to fall at precisely the right moment. "After all we've done for you, you're choosing money over your own family," Ashley accused, her voice rising. "Remember when I helped you move into your first apartment? Remember all the birthdays? The Christmases? Mom and Dad won't be around forever, Willa," my mother added, her voice thick with emotion. "Is this how you want things to be?" I watched them deploy each weapon from their arsenal of guilt, recognizing the pattern like a familiar dance. They were performers who had practiced this routine for decades, and for the first time, I saw the choreography clearly. We wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate. My father finally managed, a rare contribution that signaled they had reached their final play. I took a slow breath. When I got my promotion 2 years ago, I told everyone at Saturday lunch. No one looked up from what they were doing. I sent a message to our group chat about moving to Raleigh. Everyone read it. No one responded. I kept my voice level, recounting facts rather than emotions. Last year on my birthday, my phone didn't ring once. When I called Mom that evening, she said she'd been busy helping Ashley with the boutique opening. My family sat in uncomfortable silence as I laid out the evidence. 3 Christmases ago, I spent 4 days helping Ashley wrap inventory. 2 summers ago, I used my vacation days to watch the kids while she went to that fashion expo in Cincinnati. For years, I've been your babysitter, your extra wallet, your convenient helper. I kept my gaze steady. And now, after 2 years without a single meaningful call or message, you're here because you need money. Ashley opened her mouth to object, but I continued. The last time we spoke, Mom, you hung up on me when I tried to tell you about my new job. That was the moment I realized what I was to this family. I stood up slowly, walking to the front door. I think that's enough for today. The sudden finality of my words sent a visible shock through my family. They gathered their belongings awkwardly, no one quite meeting my eyes. My mother clutched her purse to her chest like armor. My father moved with the stiffness of someone navigating unfamiliar territory. Ashley herded her children toward the door, their earlier exuberance subdued by the tension in the room. As they filed past me, Ashley paused at the threshold. I didn't think you'd become so cold, she said, the words meant to wound. I met my sister's gaze directly. I didn't become cold, Ashley. I became clear. I closed the door behind them with a soft click that echoed through my apartment. Standing motionless in my entryway, I breathed slowly, feeling something release in my chest, a weight I'd carried for so long I'd forgotten it was there. No dramatic tears came. No urge to scream or throw things, just quiet certainty that I had, finally, done what was necessary for myself. My phone buzzed in my pocket, the first of what would likely be a barrage of texts. Without looking, I silenced the notifications. For the first time in my life, I felt no compulsion to explain or justify myself. No need to answer immediately. The freedom of non-response settled over me like a comfortable blanket. Later that evening, I checked my email to find my family had already flown back to Ohio, cutting their planned weekend visit short. My inbox filled with increasingly desperate messages over the next few days. My mother's pleading, my father's awkward attempts at reconciliation. Ashley's alternating between apologies and accusations. The week after, cousins and aunts I barely spoke to reached out with casual, just checking in messages, their sudden interest transparent. To each, I responded with polite but brief replies, declining invitations to discuss the situation. 2 weeks after their visit, a final email arrived from Ashley, detailing in clinical terms the financial consequences our family would face without my help. The boutique would close. Our parents might need to sell their home. The children would suffer. I read it once, then filed it away without response. The message was evidence that nothing had truly changed. They still saw me as a resource rather than a person. I closed my laptop and went to take Toby for his evening walk, leaving my phone behind on the kitchen counter. Outside, the North Carolina evening wrapped around me like an embrace, the air scented with magnolias and possibility. For the first time in years, I walked without the weight of obligation pressing down on my shoulders. A month later, I was back to my routine. Today, Jackson arrived at 7, the warm glow of sunset casting long shadows across my condo. He didn't ring the bell or text, just 2 gentle knocks that Toby recognized immediately. My poodle's ears perked up as he trotted to the door, tail swishing with anticipation. "Ready?" Jackson asked, his eyes scanning my face carefully. He didn't press for details, didn't ask how I was feeling after the confrontation. The absence of interrogation settled around us like a comfortable blanket. "More than you know," I said, grabbing Toby's leash from the hook by the door. At Jackson's house, the kitchen smelled of baked salmon and herbs, his grandmother's recipe, he'd told me once. I watched him move confidently between counter and stove, his hands steady as he arranged food on simple white plates. Benji and Toby curled up on the kitchen rug, their bodies forming a perfect yin and yang of fur and contentment. We ate mostly in silence. Not the strained quiet I grew up with, the heaviness of words unsaid, the constant vigilance for wrong moves, but something entirely different. Peace. The gentle clink of silverware against plates, the occasional appreciative hum, the soft patting of paws as the dogs shifted positions. After dinner, standing at the sink as I rinsed our plates, I found myself describing the scene with my family. My voice sounded distant, clinical, like I was recounting a movie I watched rather than my own life. Jackson took the plate, wiping it carefully before placing it in the cabinet. "You did what was right for you," he said simply. 2 years ago, I would have launched into explanations, justifying my decision, offering evidence of past slights, building a case for my own defense. Tonight, I just nodded. The freedom of not having to perform my reasoning felt weightless, buoyant. Later, as we sat on his back porch watching the dogs explore the yard, a realization settled over me like the evening air, cool and clarifying. My worth was never about my usefulness. The constant service, the desperate attempts to be indispensable, all of it based on the flawed belief that being needed was the same as being loved. I thought about my morning walks with Toby, how they'd transformed from hurried necessities into peaceful rituals. My promotion last month to regional director, accepted without a whisper of guilt. The dinner club I joined where we talk about books and politics and silly TV shows where no one keeps a tally of who hosted last. "You know what's strange?" I said, my voice soft in the gathering darkness. For years I thought family meant blood relations, people you're stuck with. Now I realize it's about choice. The holiday photo card on my refrigerator flashed in my mind, me with Jackson and our friends at the lake last summer. All genuine smiles and unforced joy. No stiff poses or color-coordinated outfits like the Clark family portraits of my childhood, just real people who choose each other's company. Months later, my phone rang while I was watching the sunset from my balcony. My mother's name appeared on the screen, the first call since the confrontation. "Willa," she began, her voice tentative. "I owe you an apology." "We all do." I felt my breath catch, then release. No racing heart, no desperate hope, just calm acknowledgement. "I appreciate that," I said evenly. "I need time." "Of course," she said quickly. "Whatever you need. When you're ready, if you're ever ready, we'd like to try again. On your terms." I didn't rush to answer. There was no urgency anymore, no compulsion to fix or smooth over. I told her I'll think about it, and we hung up. The next evening, Jackson and I sat on his patio watching our dogs chase each other through the yard. The setting sun painted everything in soft gold light. A quiet smile formed on my lips as I observed the peaceful scene we'd created together. "What?" Jackson asked, noticing my expression. "For the first time in my life," I said, "I'm not holding my breath." The words hung in the evening air, simple and true. Tonight was calm, and for Willa that was enough. If you were Willa, if your family ignored you for years but came back only for money, what would you do? A. Help them out of family loyalty. B. Refuse, but stay in touch. C. Cut them off completely to protect your peace. Comment your choice below because sometimes the hardest thing isn't forgiving them, it's finally stopping yourself from waiting for them to change.